Hi, everyone. I'm Lourdes Turrecha, founder of the Rise of Privacy Tech, or TROPT, as we like to abbreviate here. And I'm also your host for the TROPT Webcast. As you guys have been following us, you know that we are doing a really cool series on the TROPT Privacy Tech Stack, featuring privacy tech key players, buyers, users, domain experts, founders, and builders, board advisors. And today is no exception. I'm really excited to welcome to the webcast Privily CEO Matt Linde to talk about his experience in building in this space and the problems that he's seeing and he's building tech solutions for, and some of the insights that he has gained over the years in building in the privacy tech space. Welcome to the Trope Webcast, Matt, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Appreciate it. So, Matt, I like to ask every guest this first question. I mean, you and I might have known you because you and I have talked in the past, and we've talked about your experience building at Privily. But I do want this opportunity for you to be able to share the reason why you ended up in privacy and privacy tech in general. So, what is your privacy tech origin story, and why build in this space?
Great question. I had so I had spent a lot of my career in the data security space, and a lot of the work that I did was focused on securing access to data, protecting data. It was a lot of stuff around data. But during that time, not a lot of thought was given to should the data be there in the first place. Is that data supposed to be there? Are we using that in a way that makes sense or not? And of course, this predates a lot of the major privacy regulations that are in place now. But I had sort of transitioned into data protection, and I got exposed to I think a nice complement to what is now part of privacy concerns, which happens to be the challenge of data visibility. And so we started this company a few years ago with really that goal in mind. We felt like there was just all sorts of opportunity to improve on the quality of our capabilities as we're looking to try to improve on our visibility of the data usage that we have. So that's kind of the way we kind of got to the point of creating this company, and privacy came along as this another perspective on and another reason for doing a lot of the things that we were sort of feeling like needed to be done to begin with. Having a good understanding of how your data is being used, some real basic kind of house cleaning stuff, getting rid of data that you don't need, making sure it's in the right place, and knowing when you're monitoring something, is that something that to be concerned about or not, those sorts of things. So our movement into privacy was less about the regulations became a really important why, but it really wasn't kind of the most fundamental. It really kind of had to do with the driving force behind what we were really trying to accomplish to begin with. And I just love the fact that the privacy regulations have sort of brought about this renewed enthusiasm, I think, even within organizations, to really take a hard look at why are they using so much data, perhaps when they could be doing something different.
Yeah, you touched upon so many important things. First, the adjacent security space, data security, cybersecurity space, and how that intersects with privacy, but also that privacy in and of itself is distinct from security. And you highlight that when you talked about data minimization, right?
Right.
Like in privacy, we ask, like, do we even need this data?
Yeah.
Whereas with security, that's kind of like a foregone conclusion. You have to secure what you have. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily ask whether or not you have a purpose and all of that stuff.
Right.
But also the you then go into another adjacent space, which is the data governance space, and we've seen many needs, privacy buyers needs in that space, because you can't protect data, you can't secure it, you can't put privacy controls in place if you don't have visibility into where that data is. So thank you for touching upon those important things. I also agree that the regulations provided additional fuel to building privacy tech and innovation, but they're not the only fuel. We're seeing business clear marketplace demand for privacy on both the business side and the consumer side,
Right.
and we're also seeing other factors that are fueling privacy tech, including just the public sentiment and then the investors pouring in, I think now close to 7.5 billion of investments in privacy tech. So I feel like this is going to be a really exciting conversation. With that, I would love to hear your perspective as a builder, as a founder. I've had buyers and domain experts answer this question. I would love to hear your unique experience as a builder and founder about what you think is the biggest challenge facing the emerging privacy tech industry from your vantage point.
Gosh, the biggest challenge. I mean, I think there are a lot of challenges that are probably related. And
It's a nascent space, so there's so many
that's
challenges.
right.
As a
It's
yeah,
still moving. It's still evolving. I'm sitting in a state that doesn't have, some of the, real strong data privacy laws that others have in the US. There are, countries that are with varying laws on the books. And I think that alone creates a lot of other things that, are sort of, related to that primary challenge. So I think it's understandable, that we do have kind of that we're at where we're at in terms of the unknowns going forward. We're, I think our rights are only as good as the governments that we live under allow at the end of the day. And that means that we're all going to have slightly different rights as it relates to data privacy. I think that's just a challenge that we're going to have to live with for quite some time. I don't know that we can really get around. So those are big picture problems that I don't know that we can necessarily, do anything about. What we can do is we can try to be ready for what comes next. And I think that tends to be done through basic house cleaning. And so you talked about my personal perspective. I believe our stance is, if you've done a lot of the basics around minimizing your use of private data, having a clear understanding of why you have the remaining data there in your environment, in use, whatever. If you have justification documented, you've got good, clear understanding and objectives for why you're using that data, then I think you're already going to be really close to whatever comes next. I think there are some things that I think are brand new that the regulations have sort of created in the way of rights requests, and some of these things that are definitely going to be brand new for a lot of companies. Anyway, I think that's kind of one of the big challenges that I see is, really just making sure that you're on top of what the basics are so that you can be prepared for, coming regulations. And it's a challenge not only of just doing something. Plenty of organizations are doing something. I think what it tends to become, though, is a question of scale, a question of completeness, a question of accuracy of the technology or the approach that you're taking. I think that's where it gets real challenging to be able to say that you're done in the way of compliance or actually adhering to a particular requirement.
Yeah, I mean, you highlight, one of the bigger challenges that we have in privacy in general, not just in the privacy tech industry, which is the global data protection and privacy laws. And at the end of the day, I mean, there is that baseline where I would say around 70% of what's in the laws are similar across the board. And then GDPR introduces something new, and California does, departs from that. So it's like there's that small area where you kind of have to then change things a little bit in your program. But I do want to hone in on what you said about scaling your preparedness, right? Because the old way of doing things that buyer users used to do and privacy practitioners used to do was do things manually. And as one of our recent guests, VMware Chief Privacy Officer Stuart Lee said, we really can't do that anymore. We need to scale, as you were saying, and part of that scaling is, buyers need to embrace privacy technologies to help scale their programs. And on the flip side, it sounds like, I guess, on the flip side, as a founder, I'm curious, like, are you seeing, some of those similar challenges? So buyers have been telling me it's scale and scope and the effectiveness of tools
Mhm.
are the challenges they're facing as a founder or a builder that's responding to these changes. Like, what does that look like for you? What does that challenge look like when you're
Yeah,
building?
I think you
Yeah,
get into specific use cases at that point.
yeah,
Frankly, well, at least for me anyway. I think there are multiple ways to look at that, but uh, an example of that would be we sort of noticed a pattern where a lot of companies have purchased, and I don't mean a few. I mean probably most companies have data discovery technologies,
yes,
and they can go and find stuff. The challenge tends to be, historically anyway, the challenge tends to be the quality of that information. One, and then what do you do with that once you've got it? So it's really easy to sort of buy a tool, connect it to some sources, and start scanning. But then the question is, what do you do after that? Well, it actually becomes an operational problem for most decent sized companies, because the volume of information that's coming back has to be uh, it has to be recognized that it's not a one-time thing. It's always there. It's always going to be there. And so that's just an example of where scale for us means, well, we can, we've sort of worked through the problem of how do you deal with the reality of the steps that you need to go through once you've seen something like that, and how do you get to a state of good, a state of, well, we either like that the fact that data is there, or that we're using that, or we don't, and we've done something about it, and we've kind of documented our steps through the process.
you you touch upon two really important challenges that buyers have shared, which is the quality of the discovery of the data discovery and the scope.
Mhm.
Again, another one of our recent guests, Paola Zeni, who's the chief privacy officer at Ring Central, shared in the white paper that we published, and in the webcast episode that we are releasing shortly, shared how it's really about that. It's really about, you know, are you able to discover data not just from off the shelf solutions and SaaS
Mhm.
applications, but from legacy systems, from other, from
Right.
other, right? So there's a scope and
Right.
quality of the data
Yep.
part that's important. And then another one of our guests, Ray Everett, talks about the other one, which is the usability and the need for insights, right? Like, because once you have that
Mhm.
data, you need to be able to gain insights from that data so that you can act upon that information.
Mhm.
And in his opinion, he's one of the people who have been in this space for a long, long time, one of the first chief privacy officers, and also a builder of former builder of a privacy tech company,
Mhm.
not anymore today. He doesn't think we're quite there yet, right? Like, there's so many data discovery tools, and none of them, in his opinion, are able to really give buyers the insights. I'm curious, like, what are the things that you guys are doing to solve that problem? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's a very specific question, but you can answer that. But also, like, what are the other pain points more broadly that you guys are solving for at Privily?
Gotcha. So let me step back by saying the challenge of data visibility, as I said, I kind of came from this world of data protection where a lot of that was sort of driven by the concern for insider threat, maybe, or just general data loss kinds of topics, and a lot of folks were challenged with, and are still challenged with, the fact that the process of data discovery is simply not perfected. It is it is very it is very difficult to tune technologies to go and find data and be accurate and be specific when it finds it. So you're going to get some percentage of that information that is simply noise. Now, what is that percentage? Well, it's going to vary, but it is really common to see that it's way more than 50% noise. So, and if you're talking about, information in the tens or hundreds of thousands of findings, on a regular basis, you're talking about something that's really unmanageable. So the evolution of that has been, or I'd say pre-privacy, either you hire a ton of people to actually deal with those events, and I mean, could be, a dozen, in some sort of, response group, or you don't do anything with it at all. You let it sit and collect in a SIM tool somewhere, and you only use it for investigations. Now I'm oversimplifying, but I'd say that covers quite a few in the world, in the way of companies. So the concept for us is that information, while difficult to sort of parse through, is actually super valuable, and it has historically not been used for much of value. Maybe a tenth of it is used of its potential, maybe. So what we've done, to answer your first question about just dealing with discovery technologies, we've actually built with the expectation that they are not going to be accurate, that they're going to have problems and flaws, and some form of a standard event management process would need to occur. And I'm going to get into I don't want to derail us too far, but basically that process includes something along the lines of, you've found something, you've got to confirm with the data user or the data owner that that's okay. You don't know whether that's okay today. And so you have to kind of have a conversation, and so it becomes like this thing that has to be handled. And so we've solved for that. Now, what that says, though, is that, we've sort of started with the concept of there's this rich, intelligent knowledge base of known good, usage of data that we start with. And then from there, we've sort of been able to hang, a number of important use cases like that off of the kind of the core platform to be able to solve for some of these challenges. So, with that example, I'll give you an example. We had a customer that had, I want to say 20, 30,000 events that had been found with one of the popular discovery tools. And, we basically helped them chew through that in an automated way to go and have these conversations with data users to decide whether or not they wanted to keep it or not. If they did, does it meet the policy, and, do we need to do something else with it? If they don't want to do anything with it, then we just wipe it out for them. So there's a lot of automation that just happened and, saved thousands of person hours.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of I hope that answers your question in something meaningful and concrete in terms of how we solve for that.
Yeah, that does. And I'm curious, like, can you talk, data discovery, that's, such a big problem, but it's also just one of the many big problems in the privacy space. So I'm curious, like, aside from visibility and data discovery in general, what are some of the other pain points that you guys are solving for at Privily, and why? Like, how do you go about picking, given there's so many?
Yeah, there are a lot, and I can't say we aim to solve all of them.
No.
As I mentioned, I think visibility is an important component. The minimization of data is just, I think, strategic to good data privacy program. There's absolutely no reason to worry about protecting, worry about the risk of loss, worry about dealing with response to tell me what data you have about me, sort of a DSAR, if you don't need it there in the first place.
Right.
So I think that's a really important step that we're sort of trying to help companies.
Back to data minimization.
That's right. Data minimization. That's driven, honestly, we as much as we want to try to predict what's happening, at the higher level, we've really tried to stay close to our customers and figure out what they're really challenged with first, and kind of start from there.
So what are you hearing then? I'm curious what buyers are asking from you guys, and that's amazing that because that's the way to go, really. Like, that's one of the challenges that we're seeing, is that we're seeing tools that are built without that aren't quite aligned with buyers and users reality. So I'm curious, like, what are some of the responses that you're getting when you're conducting market research and talking to buyers?
Right. So I don't think I can preach on, how best and quickly to get to product market fit. That is a challenge, and I think we can all agree that that's a challenge for all of us. That said, we've tried to build in a way that our capabilities have a lot of flexibility of integration. So we know that we've got a couple of really, some set of important features or capabilities, but it's been built around this very flexible platform that gives us the ability to punch out and do almost anything we want to, if need be, and that customer needs that. So I don't know that they've even said it as much as it has just been something that we have inferred. But I think because of the how early we are in this industry, coupled with our understanding of how business software tends to be successful when it can be flexible and integrate with a lot of things at random. I think we have felt like that is one really important feature is, any given chief privacy officer, or, in some cases, it's just been somebody in the security or data governance group for us, with these needs, are going to need more than just whatever it is that we do. It's got to play nice with a bigger process that we won't necessarily have full control over. And so it's got to have that ability to flex and, perhaps, kind of script out here or hit an API there, or, pulling, consume information there, or being willing to just simply, forgo one of our features because they've already got that. But, so it's very much I don't know that we're so defined yet in the market that we're able to just, sit there on our one, shovel and say, this is all we do.
No, that's completely understandable. And it might be that you have several offerings for several pain points. But you mentioned a specific one, which is integration. And that's the number one thing challenge that buyers have shared with us, and that we reported on in the white paper that we just published.
Huge.
So it's huge. And it goes hand in hand with, integration with their internal existing systems.
Right.
But also the other side of that is interoperability with other tools that they might be used, which you mentioned you're willing to forgo a specific feature because they might already have something in place. And so that highlights the need to be flexible, able to integrate internally and be interoperable with other existing tools that they might already have onboarded. So sounds like you guys are giving that and responding to that buyer need. What is your advice to, I know you're still very early on in your journey, but there are even earlier ones. I've talked to founders who are just, in the ideation stage or just raised their pre-seed. So I'm curious, like, what are some of the advice that you want to share with them if they want to break into the space and navigate building in the privacy tech industry, which is
right. Yeah. Again, I'd hesitate to, stand too tall with the advice, but I think one of the things that we haven't done well, let me start there, is building too much without really being certain that there was enough of a market need for it. I'm sure a lot of companies are guilty of that. We definitely are. So, if I may start there, I would say, I would do my best to work with, somebody that's already in, an industry position of having a particular problem, and, being able, having some sort of a close enough relationship to them that you're able to, get that knowledge sharing going, and work with them to, validate. And then, of course, that's not the only person you want to talk to, but I think that that's a good start We've only been successful because of, I would say, real champions with some of our customers that have been willing to say, hey, I really like your idea, and I'm going back maybe even a few years, but I really like your idea. It's not really there yet, but I'm willing to partner with you, because I see some potential. And I think, that is a for me anyway, that's been a critical component of our, making it where we are at this point. Now that said, there's, for us personally, there's a whole lot. We have a lot more. We have a lot longer to go. But I think that's a good start. Is understanding that what your market needs, but not trying to solve all those problems. Pick one or two. See if you can, to your best of your ability, find that there are more folks with that problem that you can build something repeatable for. And I think you're well on your way.
That's an excellent point. Partnering with a buyer user, right, at the early stages, especially when the product's not quite there yet. I mean, it gives them the flexibility to test out your tool, but also, I mean, it works for them because some of their needs and pain points make it to your product roadmap. And then it works for you because you now have a partner that could turn into a paying customer. And so, yeah, that's an excellent point that, again, we highlight with, I think, highlighted specifically by Paula Zenny from Ring Central. It's an approach that she does, an approach that we both saw in the cybersecurity space when we both worked at Palo Alto Networks. That it's a tried and tested approach, and it's something that the emerging privacy tech space should adopt, given how it's worked in the adjacent cybersecurity space. I'm curious, as a founder in this space, where do you see this industry, this emerging industry, in 5 to 10 years? Or if you don't want to answer that question, where would you like to see this in 5 to 10 years?
Great question. Well, I would like to see something a little bit more ubiquitous in the way of data privacy regulation. In that time frame, I think that's achievable.
You mean
in the U.S.?
US? Yeah, in
the U.S. I think it's achievable. What do I know about politics? But I do think that's
they'll pass it right now, the next few weeks before the session ends.
Yeah, that's right. So but with that, I think we have an opportunity to really reshape the way we think. Again, kind of going back to the data privacy topic as a whole. I mean, I think our rights are something that if we're not really exercising them, I think it's easy to lose them in a way. So I would like to see that we have actually achieved and we've delivered on, these regulations in a meaningful way, not a company just racing to check some boxes, but that we've actually looked at the spirit of the requirements in such a way that companies by and large are saying, yeah, we've actually made a real commitment to respecting, protecting, and being good stewards of our customer data, our employee data as well. I think that's what I would like to see, and I'd like to be a part of the solution that helps companies get there. I'm sure that that's not going to cover everybody, but I think that there's plenty of time for that to happen.
I think you nailed it right on the head. Each one of us has a role to play, right? Like, our lawmakers in DC have to pass a comprehensive federal privacy law. So calling our California and Texas representatives, get on it, please. We're begging you. But like you said, users and consumers, business and consumer users also need to demand that, right? Like, there are research that say that consumers are demanding privacy, exercising their privacy rights, and that business users are also demanding privacy when it comes to the tools and vendors and partners that they work with. And then you and me, we need more founders like you who are building solutions to these privacy problems. And so I think each one of us has a role to play to tackle this huge challenge that is privacy in general. We've covered so much, but before we wrap up, I'd love to do a quick round of lightning questions if you're game.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Ready. So when you're thinking about the future of privacy tech and innovation, you feel optimism or dread? Pick one.
Oh, optimism for sure.
Absolutely. You have to, as a founder.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. What is one consumer privacy tech solution that you use? It doesn't have to be a brand. It can just be a type of product that you use to protect your privacy.
Yeah, on the consumer privacy, I mean, I use the cookie management, technology regularly.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Likewise, they're annoying, but I exercise my rights there.
Yep.
What is one privacy tech solution, business or consumer, that you would like to see built that doesn't exist yet today?
Ooh. I don't know if I've got.
That's okay. We can skip
immediately, but I will just say this to the follow up of the cookie management. It'd be great if we didn't have to go to answer that question for every last website and every time we visit it.
Right.
Somebody's got a good, brilliant solution to that, I'm certain.
I couldn't agree more with that. There's a way to go about bringing your permissions with you as you browse the internet or different apps. That would be great, as opposed to doing it every single time. There's a hypothetical billboard that billions of people could see. What is one privacy related message that you would like to share?
I think it would be something, I don't know if I'm going to word this right, but I think it would be something along the lines of privacy means you don't have to be who you were yesterday.
Get a choice. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the work that we go into to kind of, self-improvement personally, in the world, there's a lot of that. I think data privacy and, exercising your rights in a way, I mean, I think it gets to that to a certain degree. It's, you've got a digital trail, a digital history that's, that doesn't have to live forever, and you can, you ought to have control over that, and you should exercise your right to control it.
Absolutely. Amen. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I love the approach that you guys have taken when it comes to really listening to your buyers and customers and building not just all of your products, but specifically your data discovery products. I mean, you honed in on a lot of different challenges that buyers are telling us and asking us to share with founders, and that includes integration and quality of data discovery tools and the insights that we need to be able to derive from the data that's being collected. So thank you for sharing that with us today, Matt. Before we wrap up, I'd love to give you the opportunity to share any calls to action that you might have, any asks that you might have of the TROPT audience and community. I'm sure they'd love to know where to find Privily, or, if you want to be found, you personally, online.
Well, for one thing, I'd say shout out to all my peers out there that are starting up a data privacy technology company of some sorts or the other. I think we've got a lot of white space. There's all sorts of stuff that we can do here, and so I'm excited about what's going on. For us, I would love to speak. I think I mentioned this. We've had some really great customers who have been champions for us. I really enjoy working with companies like that, folks that want to kind of partner with a company that can be flexible and that can really cater to what they're trying to accomplish. And I'm not looking for 100 more companies like that, but maybe one or two. So if somebody feels like they're kind of in that position, and that's something they would love to discuss, maybe some of the things we talked about today are a challenge for them, and they would like to talk about solving it, reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. This will probably link to that at some point. You can also find us at privily.io. Try to keep that nice and easy. So feel free to reach out. I'd love to speak to you.
I love the shout out that you gave to your fellow builders. We need, I'm with you. We need more of you guys. Competition, there's space for healthy competition, but we also really need to come together because there's so much opportunity, and not just opportunity to build, but also opportunity to collaborate and maybe, work together and partner in this space. And I'm glad that at TROPT, we're doing our best to make that happen and to bring everyone together through our webcasts and events and
absolutely.
The tech stacks. And thank you for being such an important part of that community, Matt. I'm grateful for the work that you guys at Privily are doing. There are actually two people in my head, two CPOs who you reminded me who might be a good fit for your as partners. I don't know. You guys will have to check it out, but I'll send an email after this.
Yeah, no problem.
Putting down a note to do the intro email. And with that, thanks everyone for joining us today. If you haven't, read the review of Privily's products in the TROPT Privacy Tech Stack white paper, we'll share a link. It's also found in our TROPT Privacy Tech Stack website, which we'll also share a link in the comments. And again, check out Matt and Privily at Privily.io. And with that, until next time, thank you for joining us today.